When it comes to exclusivity, the PS5 and the Series X have been going blow for blow since the release of the next-gen consoles, and personally I want them both to succeed, because why not? More good games for everyone. But with us still waiting on some big Xbox news from E3 and the release of Ratchet and Clank acting as the PS5 flagship game, showcasing all its monstrous next-gen juicy goodness, Ratchet and Clank feels like a huge body blow to Xbox. Visually, I mean, wow, just wow. The tutorial section, as soon as I started, was probably one of the most revolutionary, true to the promises, next-gen experiences I've ever played. It blew me away. I've never seen so much fast-paced, beautifully coloured action, squeezing every last drop of eye candy out of the PS5 as possible. The particle effects, the sheer amount of NPCs frantically running about in the opening sequences. There's just so much jaw-dropping beauty to take in that once I first started playing, I forgot I was here to save the world, and the fact that there's a very real impending threat on my life, but I just didn't care because the stunning graphics were just all too much for me, and at first I was like,
this is gonna be so much fun.
We've got a fidelity mode, which is probably the first time I've ever been tempted to play a game at 30 FPS when 60 FPS was an option, because it just looked incredibly crisp at 4K with ray tracing. I still opted for the performance mode though, which was a nice balance instead of the performance ray tracing mode, which I thought dropped the resolution down a little too much, and I just don't think the ray tracing was worth that drop. I'd recently played the PS5 upgrade of the 2016 Ratchet and Clank, and as much as the game seems similar on paper, there's some very subtle differences that make huge differences. A simple addition like the ability to sprint, aiming down the sights, a new phantom dash allowing us to dodge incoming attacks, and some swanky new hover boots helping us fly around the map. As simple as these seem, these additions have made the world of difference, and they've genuinely elevated the series, really going toe to toe with some heavyweight third-person platforming shooters in the industry. Even the basic platforming of the past games has been vamped up a notch, feeling much more refined, with the fast-paced wall running mechanic really improving that fluidity throughout the game. Similar to 2016 Ratchet and Clank, the weapons skill tree is simple and based on your playstyle, meaning your favourite weapons, the one you use most, level up quicker, and with each level unlocked we gain access to more upgrades as we progress. We do, once again, get to hear all about the joys of using the haptic feedback in the DualSense controller, and it really does make a big difference. It's starting to become a familiar pattern, and similar to other games like Returnal, there's an alternative firing mode to each weapon, whether that's long-ranged, short-ranged, constant beams, automatics, throwables, and even the weird and wonderful creations that Insomniac have designed. They all feel good with the DualSense, and with this being the sort of game that I knew the missus would enjoy playing, she quickly reminded me of what it's like to play with the DualSense for the first few times, struggling to hide her obvious joy and watching her pick up this new vibrating gadget like...
Oh God. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Oh.
Speaking of females, we can play as a new character, Rivet, an other dimensional counterpart of Ratchet, who is discovered through the rifts that have started appearing thanks to Dr. Nefarious stealing a tool known as the Dimensionator and using this tool to bend the dimensions of the universe to his will. The rifts that appear throughout the game are used to showcase the lightning speeds of the PS5's SSD hardware. But from a gameplay point of view, they're used in cinematic scenes, accessing secret areas when exploring, and even used tactically during battles to quickly whip yourself through one to flank your enemies. The enemies get a little rinse and repeat after a while, with the first 2/3 of the game primarily being the same batch of robots, eventually facing off against 2 or 3 of them at one time, rather than facing a new enemy altogether. In the final sections we face off against some familiar foes seen in previous games, but one enemy in particular was my favourite, and I won't spoil it for you, but he stalks you similar to the likes of Resident Evil's Mr. X and the Nemesis. It was great fun and pretty tense, but it didn't last as long as I'd hoped. Now once I fired up the game, I was feeling a little bit cocky, thinking, the Ratchet and Clank games, they're for kids, and having played the 2016 game on normal and finding it a bit of a cakewalk, I thought let's crunk it up a level, or maybe I'll stick it on the Renegade Legend mode. Well, what a fucking mistake that was, because these things that looked like they should just be fun, harmless, and kid-friendly beings were just like...
I think you've had enough. No? Now you've had enough, bitch.
It's quite a cutscene heavy game, but there's some brilliant in-game cinematic moments that are such a buzz to witness the world fly past at a solid 60 FPS. There's one area that really opens up, encouraging some rewarding exploration, searching for those skill points and collectibles, and of course making good use of your new hover boots. As well as Rivet, there's Glitch! No, not that kind of glitch, the new character Glitch, who's similar to those robot spider mini puzzles that we saw in Watch Dogs Legion, which really do add another quirky, fun little feature to the game. These, as well as some fairly basic Lemmings or Oddworld style puzzles too when controlling Clank, where you've got to guide this continuous queue of hologram Clanks to the end of the puzzle, it all adds more depth and variety to the content on offer. The audio is fantastic throughout, with all the characters' vocal performances being first class, and again, utilising the PS5's latest features, listening through the 3D Pulse headset was another joy that fits the pattern of this game, where initial impressions of all the razzle-dazzle showmanship features like the visuals, the fast-loading dimensional riffs, the haptic feedback through the DualSense, and even the 3D audio. It's so hard to stay focused on what's actually going on around you without being completely distracted by these amazing features like... Overall, this is the new PS5 flagship standalone game that has well and truly delivered. Putting aside the odd glitch, the game is a must-have for those who can afford it at least anyway, because Jesus, 65 smackers is pretty brutal. As good as the game is, the new next-gen pricing doesn't seem to be easing off as quickly as the last-gen prices did anyway, and it doesn't sit right with me, which is probably the only major negative thing I have to say in this review, and that's thankfully no reflection on the game itself. So if you're one of the lucky PS5 owners and you can grab this at a discount price, then absolutely go for it. I just hope Insomniac can turn their attention to some previous Insomniac classics and give them the same treatment. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and you can spare the time, drop a like our way or maybe a cheeky sub. Have a good one. Peace out.